Okay, we are ready to go.
All right, welcome to the April 1st, 2024 meeting of the Transportation Committee. My name is Jason Bromwitz and I'm the chair of the committee. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth. This meeting is called to order at 7:03 p.m. As a reminder, New York State law requires all community board members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called until the time the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. There's time following the committee discussion. We will field questions from the public. I will be taking minutes tonight via the video afterwards. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Okay. Committee members, I will call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce that there is quorum. B. Disman.
Present.
Rob Friedman.
Present.
Jason Promowitz.
Present.
Marion Rowe.
Present.
Matt Roberts isn't with us tonight. Larry Shire.
Present.
Gabe Terza.
Present.
Jerry Weinstein.
Present.
And Heidi Zaidi also isn't here tonight, but we have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you, all right. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Now we will adopt the minutes. The minutes were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. Speak now. Alrighty. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the March 4th meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. All right, let's set some ground rules. In order to conduct a efficient meeting, one, no one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so that you can speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties that you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated on the record during the meeting. All right, tonight's agenda. Number one, we have a presentation from the New York City Department of Transportation on the Queensboro South Outerway roadway conversion, which I am personally very excited to see. And I will hand it over to Colleen.
Hi, everyone. It's Colleen Chattergoon from City Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for accommodating us this evening to give the presentation on the Queensboro Bridge South Outer Roadway safety improvements. My colleague Carissa and Dan Wagner are on the call or in the meeting. They're also going to join us, and Carissa is going to give the presentation. So thank you so much.
All right, great. Thank you, Colleen. Let me pull it up. All right, everyone can see the screen okay?
Yes, but sorry to interrupt, but you sound a little bit soft. I don't know about to others, but to me, you sound a little bit soft.
Okay, let me. Is this better?
Slightly.
It's slightly better.
Let me see. Here, let me try to take out my headphones.
You sound like you're at from a distance. That's what it is. Maybe it's your microphone. You need to put it closer to you.
All right, is this better? No? Okay. Ah,
But pretend you're in a big auditorium and you're projecting. We are a distance from you.
This is true.
okay. Can you hear me now?
It's a little bit
It's a little
better.
bit stronger.
Better.
Okay, well, okay. If you have any issues, let me know. I'll try to speak loudly. I'll just blame this on my DOT laptop.
Well, the sound quality is excellent. Just pretend that you're speaking to a hard of hearing relative.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Carissa Lidstrand, and I will be presenting our street improvements for the South Outer Roadway conversion on the Manhattan side. And so just a little bit about me and where I'm at DOT. I'm in the public realm team, which is within the Office of Livable Streets at New York City DOT. And tonight, our proposals really reflect the public realm's goals and objectives, some of which are creating premier public spaces, as well as thinking comprehensively about planning and policy. And so you'll see that reflected throughout our proposal tonight. And so going into the background, I think a lot of you know that during the de Blasio administration, it was announced that New York City DOT would convert the South Outer Roadway from vehicles to pedestrians. And around that time, our Bridges Department at DOT was undergoing construction of the upper deck to the Queensboro Bridge. And that is something that is carried on through today and has been one of the things we've been waiting on to open the South Outer Roadway. And so when we're thinking about opening the South Outer Roadway to pedestrians, we want to be thinking about kind of the street level improvements that we need to make on both the Manhattan side as well as the Queens side, specifically because we're moving the location of where pedestrians are going to be entering and exiting the bridge. And so the street level improvements, we're really wanting to think about certain goals and objectives that we have for those. Some of them are creating a pedestrian network that is accessible, safe, and convenient. While we're not relocating where bikes will access the North Outer Roadway, we do want to be thinking about the existing bike network and any enhancements that can be made. And then we also want to be thinking about kind of the local access to these streets for businesses, residents, and any city facilities that are along these routes. And so really the reason that we're here today is because the North Outer Roadway is over capacity. It's the only New York City DOT East River Bridge that is a shared use path between pedestrians and bikes. And as you can see in the table on the bottom left, the Queensboro Bridge is actually the second highest, has the second highest bike volume of those New York City DOT East River bridges. We also have about 2,800 people who walk over the bridge daily. That number might be more if the conditions felt more comfortable to walk across. So the South Outer Roadway is currently one travel lane taking vehicles, primarily passenger vehicles, because there is a height restriction from Manhattan to Queens. The number of vehicles that use this route per day is about 8,000, and that actually is less than the combined total of the pedestrians and bikes that are using the North Outer Roadway. And so now we'll take you into the existing conditions on the Manhattan side before getting into our proposal. And so as I was mentioning before, let me actually orient you a little bit to this. So we're looking at a plan view, mostly of East 59th Street here, and we're bordered on the right-hand side. We have First Avenue, and on the left, we have Second Avenue. And so currently the pedestrian access for the bridge is on East 60th Street. And with the South Outer Roadway being the primary access point, we're moving the pedestrian entrance to East 59th Street. And you can see a photo of that existing condition today. And so looking a little more closely at the existing pedestrian conditions here, on the south side of 59th Street, we have a continuous sidewalk that gets pedestrians from First Avenue to Second Avenue. But on the north side, we only have a sidewalk between First Avenue and the South Outer Roadway. This creates a condition where pedestrians that might be, visiting Honey Locust Park or just walking along that section of the sidewalk have to cross mid-block to get over to a sidewalk facility. And you can see that in the top left photo. And then taking a closer look at the sidewalk conditions themselves, we do have some narrow sidewalk widths from our pedestrian mobility plan guidelines. Currently, they're about 15 feet, but really it depends on where you're walking along the sidewalk and what different types of street furniture there might be or permanent objects that protrude out from the building line like stairs. And then because we have only one continuous sidewalk along the south edge, that creates one crossing for pedestrians at Second Avenue, in which facilitates kind of a busy intersection because that's the only pedestrian crossing. And then thinking again about the bike network, we're not relocating where bikes will enter the bridge, but we do want to be thinking about the existing network and any enhancements that can be made. And so taking a look at the existing conditions here, there's actually a really high number of bikes that use 59th Street to access southbound Second Avenue. So they'll, instead of coming down at the mouth of the bridge, bikes will take 60th to First and then to 59th to Second. And those current conditions along 59th Street for bikes is a shared travel lane between bikes and vehicles that are accessing the South Outer Roadway currently. And then on the western section, we have a buffered bike lane. You can see that in the top left photo. And then again, there's kind of the busy intersection at Second Avenue between both bikes and pedestrians accessing that section. And then taking a look at the existing conditions for vehicles, currently with the South Outer Roadway open, we have a left turn bay on First Avenue over here, which is dedicated for those that are using the South Outer Roadway. And then there are actually 3 DOT facilities along the northern curb of 59th Street that are highlighted here, as well as 2 parking garages on the south side of 59th Street. And then taking a closer look at the existing curb regulations in this area, they really vary quite a bit, but they all permit kind of this quick pickup drop-off in the no standing areas. We also allow for loading and unloading in the no parking 7 to 7 period. And then there is a little bit of truck loading on First Avenue. We did conduct a merchant survey where we spoke to the businesses along 59th Street to ask them about their loading needs or delivery needs. And a lot of them said that the current regulations are working fine for them. All right, so now we are going to transition into our proposal. But first, I want to talk a little bit about DOT's in-house toolkit. So we have a lot of different designs and materials that we can use at our disposal, from anywhere from concrete materials to different types of kind of painted materials that can help to delineate different types of spaces. So a lot of them you might be familiar with are the painted sidewalks that we've done kind of in the Midtown area. And then we've also been using more of the shared space typology that you can see in this photo, where you have more of like a low volume street and vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians might be sharing kind of the roadway with each other. So those are just a few I want to highlight before jumping into our proposal. All right, So taking a look at 59th Street, I want to just start by kind of pointing out some of the pedestrian improvements that we're making. So as I mentioned before, the sidewalk does not go all the way between First and Second Avenue on the north side. And so we want to install a painted sidewalk along the northern curb of 59th Street so that when pedestrians are coming off of the South Outer Roadway, they're going to be using this facility here, this concrete sidewalk. And then as they exit, they have a choice to either go to Second Avenue or to First Avenue. And we want to create a facility for them. Then we're also exploring a mid-block crossing at the entry exit point of the bridge located here. And then a crossing over at Second Avenue to get from the new painted sidewalk to the southeastern curb. And then because the eastbound direction is kind of already low volume, we want to kind of facilitate this as a local access route and kind of a low volume street. And so we also want to add a few traffic calming elements at the entrance to Second Avenue by building a small little concrete triangle, and then also adding a painted curb extension mid-block as well. And then taking a look at both kind of the bike and vehicle improvements along the route. With the South Outer Roadway closed, we can remove the left turn bay that's currently on First Avenue and widen the existing bike lane that's on First Avenue, and then also extend the truck loading that's on there. And then because the street will be kind of this more lower volume street with this turn, we are keeping it two-way up until the parking garage. And then after that, it will be the orange color highlighted here will be this shared space between authorized vehicles only and bikes. And as I mentioned before, there are 3 DOT facilities along the northern curbs, so we still want to have access there. Our bridges team at DOT will be installing a gate here for their maintenance access, and then also to prevent vehicles from using the South Outer Roadway. And then we'll also be maintaining the buffered bike lane on the western side, but adding some elements like quick curb and keeping the existing Jersey barriers under the overpass to kind of clarify where bikes and vehicles and pedestrians should be, and to also kind of calm the turn at Second Avenue to make everyone visible to one another. And then we're also looking at extending the parking one spot along Second Avenue for here. And I'll give a little bit more detail into the curb reg changes. So we're still keeping the theme of the loading, unloading spaces, as well as, you know, the quick pickup drop off along 59th Street. We're just kind of transitioning where those spots will be. And then we'll be able to expand the truck loading on First Avenue, as I mentioned, because we can remove the left turn bay from the vehicles that are no longer going to the South Outer Roadway, and then adjusting kind of the parking along Second Avenue. And then kind of zooming out and thinking about the South Outer Roadway being closed to vehicles, there are alternative routes that someone can take if they still want to travel to Queens. There is the lower roadway as well as the upper roadway. And we will be looking at kind of the lane configurations for both of those with the revised volume from the South Outer Roadway being closed. And then kind of going into timeline, this is considering, you know, both the Manhattan side of the bridge as well as the Queens side. And then thinking about when the South Outer Roadway will open, we're anticipating late summer 2024, so this year, for the South Outer Roadway to close to vehicles and open to pedestrians. And this is outlining kind of what we want to accomplish before the South Outer Roadway opens to pedestrians and then what kind of has to wait until after for us to install. And this goes into a little bit about like the Queens side of the bridge proposal, as well as the Manhattan, but they are very much linked together, and we see this all as one holistic project. And that's our proposal.
Thank you very much. Anything else from you guys before we open it up for questions? All right, I'll open it up to questions. I have some myself, but I'll come back. Sure.
Thank you, Chris. I'm wondering if you've been able to break out from the amount of cyclists, those who are deliveristas.
We could look at those numbers in a little bit more detail. This is just the overall
Sure.
volumes
Well,
for 59th Street.
because what I'm thinking is you've earmarked a whole bunch of different functions and areas. Just off the top of my head, since we've been talking about areas for delivery folks to have recharging stations and whatnot, could that be a possibility?
So it's Colleen. We are working closely with creating sites. We're working with parks as we speak, with identifying sites for deliveristas. I don't know if we have, or if we have, Parks has surveyed CB6 along with DOT, but we can definitely look into that and follow up with the community board.
Thank you.
Khalid, since you're actively discussing that, I'll just remind you that we passed a resolution to actively ask for installation of those in our district, which I know there have been other community boards that have been less receptive to them. Just like to please consider us for installation. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm glad, and we will definitely, look into that for the community board.
Okay, Larry.
And specifically, there's an area on the south side of the bridge that was an entrance to the trolley barn. Historically, where the ramp comes up and you have a garage door as the roadway switches back. Do you know where I'm talking about, Colleen?
No, I'm not familiar with what you're speaking about.
How about
Larry.
the bridge? How about the bridge team? You know what I'm talking about? It may be used now for some bridge maintenance, but it might be worth taking a look at some portion of that area could be repurposed for the purpose of creating a large facility for the deliveristas to recharge, to be out of the elements. And it's sheltered, and it might actually serve multiple functions in addition to what it's currently being used for.
Okay, maybe you can, if you can send me the exact location or a screenshot of the photo, and we can probably have a walkthrough of it.
All right, you can see it.
Carissa, it looks like you're acknowledging it.
Are you talking about, right over here, where you go
Yes.
up the south outer roadway? and then
Right when
the
you
garage?
when you have that picture with the trolley track from 1911, you can
Right.
you can see the place where one trolley track comes up the ramp, the other one comes out of the garage.
Right. Yes, our bridges team does use that facility for maintenance and storing vehicles and different elements.
Yeah, we do have a bridge facility in that area. They do use
So
that.
So the question is this, is it conceivable, since that's going to continue to be used and you're going to have to manage to get vehicles in and out of there somehow without interfering with the bikes, that you could discuss this?
Larry, we can look at various options. Let's look at this and we'll definitely get back to the community board.
Larry, so you're saying use that for deliveries to rest area?
Well, I mean, there are two things. One, you have this garage door, you have this maintenance facility. Nothing's been mentioned about how that function will interact and with the pedestrians who are coming up and down off the bridge.
So I think they did. So my understanding is you've got that sidewalk path, the gray area. And then that's gonna be the entry point for pedestrians. That gets you past the door, the entryway.
Where the gray area ends, comes around the ramp to the right.
Yeah,
And then
Right,
you
so
see
there
that
will
blue
be,
dot? You see that blue dot?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, so
that's
our-
where and there's a white line, that's the garage door.
no, the garage door's back behind that.
No, that's where
It's over
the
here.
garage door is.
Oh, sorry, yes, not where the blue dot is though, where the outline ends.
It's, the garage is to the left of that vertical white line there.
No, I don't, sorry, hold on.
this is can you see my cursor? The garage door is here, and then
Okay, that's
this-
fine.
this here is a new gate that our bridges team will be installing as part of the project. So pedestrians will actually be accessing the space you see here.
Okay.
And then they'll be directed to use the current concrete sidewalk path that
Oh.
goes up.
Okay, focus on the new gate. And my question here, first question is, how will service vehicles get in and out of that garage if this ramp is shut off?
So there's going to be the gate here as well as down here. And so our DOT vehicles will pull up to the gate and they'll have to, move it, and then they'll bring their vehicles up the existing ramp. And
So
then I'm assuming
that's a
they'll like back
pedestrian.
into the garage area.
Well, they're gonna keep that for roadway, and then the pedestrian area is the grayish to the right of the ramp.
Okay, because I completely misunderstood what the concept here was. Because I thought that there was a retaining wall that was on the right side of the ramp as you came up. And there isn't any space where that gray
There's
is.
actually- Let me go
Do you have
back.
a photograph?
Yeah, I think there was a picture.
There's, where's the SOR photo? This one. So this is going to be the new pedestrian, or it's an
Oh,
existing
okay, so I
path.
didn't realize, I
So
didn't
this
realize.
is the
the
retaining
tracks.
wall, I think you're mentioning that, and then Honey Locust Park is literally right here.
Okay, so there's the ramp, the driving ramp, and then there's a walkway, which I hadn't viewed before.
Right.
Yeah, so that's still gonna be a roadway up into, to allow access for that garage, and then
Okay,
but it's not only for the.
But there'll be a gate right here in the.
Okay,
future.
but what I'm asking you to do is, and now I'm rejiggering it in my head, is still consider the possibility of allowing the deliveryistas to use that vehicular ramp to come up, and if there's space, maybe maybe even outside of the garage, but between the new gate and the garage door, to have some sort of place to hang out.
Hi, this
And
is,
charge.
this is Dan Wagner from DOT. We can take that back to our bridges folks and see how they would respond to that proposal. But I do want to point out that you were asking for a Deliveristas hub in your district, and that is not in your district. That is in CB8.
Well, the south side of the bridge is in our district.
I think
It's
the
just
south side of 59th Street is the district, and the
Well,
north
you're
side.
right. You're absolutely right. Our boundary is 59th Street. The bridge is between 59th and 60th Street.
I mean, it's nothing really in terms of a deliverista needing rest and respite and all that kind of stuff. But if you still want one in your district, I think that wouldn't solve it.
Yeah,
Why not
and
both?
we're happy to take this back to work with the community board to find the suitable locations for the deliveristas. So let's continue the conversation with that.
Listen, this was just a brainstorming idea. It's not a concrete proposal. We don't know if it's feasible.
Okay, let's move on.
But I do, okay, I'll come back later.
Hey, Carissa, thank you. It's a great presentation. I just wanted to comment on the 11-foot width of the north lane, and I went out and measured it last weekend, and on the Manhattan side, it goes down to 9 foot 8 inches. And that's where, you know, the cyclists are getting speed as they're coming from Queens. And it's really tight for pedestrians and cyclists going two ways. So, you know, it's a pretty dangerous situation, and it's been like that for a few years. So my point is, I'd urge you to make this change, which looks like a great presentation, as soon as possible. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask one question. When we looked at the numbers a couple slides back, on the bicycle volume versus the car volume on the outer roadway, I'm assuming those are average numbers, and I sort of want to, it's a question, but sort of a point, I'm assuming that there's large variation in the bike and pedestrian access on the bridge in the colder months, whereas I assume the auto traffic, it stays fairly steady throughout the year. So in the summer months, my assumption is that the volume actually far exceeds, much further exceeds the auto volume on the South Outer Roadway. Is that a correct? Is that, would I presume to be correct in that assumption?
Right, the bike numbers are like the average for the year, so you could be correct in that the summer volume is higher than the 7,000 that you're seeing here.
Great, cool, thanks. Okay, couple of questions. I'll go Michael, right?
Yep.
You can just, they should be able to hear you.
No, you can come over here.
Yeah, then you'll be on the camera.
You can sit in front of the camera.
Yeah, you're welcome to take the seat if you'd like it.
Hi, my name is Michael Cohen, and I had a question about the bridge access for the bicycles. Like, when they get on the bridge, they'll have to be in mixed traffic with authorized vehicles. I don't know what those authorized vehicles are, but like, this sounds a lot less good than like what they currently have for shared path on the bridge. And I wonder why a bike lane couldn't be installed just for bicycles on the bridge.
Are you referencing on 59th Street or on the North Outer Roadway
On
itself?
the south outer, on the outer roadway, like there will be a lane for bicycles and off-road vehicles only. Will that be? Is
So
there
a lot
any way
of
it can make it safer for bikes?
Yeah, so the authorized vehicles are, you can see some of the DOT vehicles in this photo on the top here, this yellow van. We also have a few kind of like larger trucks that we use, as well as just pickup trucks. And the space here, let me go to the proposed section. So this section would be the authorized vehicle space that would be shared. There's actually, I think daily, it really ranges for how many DOT vehicles there are, but I would say there's like less than 50. So you're not going to be experiencing a lot of vehicle activity for that westbound movement as a cyclist.
Thank you.
All right, Larry, I'll come back, sorry. I want to answer, let's jump. And actually, go ahead, Larry, sorry.
Are you planning to review the health of the electrical and lighting systems on the bridge? Currently on the north side, a lot of lights are out for extended periods of time. And we're afraid, obviously, when you're going to add the pedestrian feature on the south side of the bridge, that not having adequate lights is a safety issue as well there.
We can definitely evaluate the lighting on the North Outer Roadway. That's a good flag. And our bridges team will be making some of the improvements when they install the fencing on the South Outer Roadway, as well as the pedestrian stamp markings. And then we'll also alert them to make sure that there's all the appropriate lighting as well.
The nature what I see in these outages suggests maybe somebody's stolen copper or done something like that that's made it difficult. And it's not just replacing luminaires.
Okay, that's definitely a good flag, and I'll check in with them on that.
Okay, I want to change the subject if I can.
Let me come back to you because there's a question from the public. That's a perfect transition. The North Outer Roadway, there was asked if it's going to be repaved and restriped as part of this project.
You,
I can take it. So we are currently not planning on resurfacing the North Outer Roadway, but we will be adjusting some of the markings as well as the signage on that side of the bridge.
Thanks. Let's go to Stu and the Zoom, and then Larry, I'll go back to you. Go ahead, Stu.
Hi, I'm sorry. With the advent of the pedestrian way on the south, will you be putting signs up on the north, no pedestrians, and directing pedestrians to the correct crossing?
Yes, that is the plan. We will be, directing all of the pedestrians to use the newly opened South Outer Roadway so that there hopefully will not be conflict points anymore between bikes and pedestrians on the North Outer Roadway. I'm
And
sure there will be some everyone getting used to the new conditions, I'm sure, for the first few months, but yeah, that is the plan.
but specifically a no pedestrian sign as opposed to one that simply gently points them to the other roadway. And I'm speaking from, the experience we have on other bridges, Manhattan Bridge and the Williamsburg. You often get pedestrians there, and the signage doesn't really make clear that they shouldn't be there.
Yes, we will install the no pedestrian signage and then also have wayfinding to the new location.
Okay, thanks.
The Stu had
God, yes.
anticipated my next topic, which is comparing this with prior projects to particularly the Manhattan Bridge, where you have pedestrians on the south side, the bikes on the north side. Stu and I had a conversation amplifying what he was talking about, where in the pedestrian walkway, he frequently encountered motorbikes speeding along, which created a very hazardous situation for pedestrians, and perhaps signs alone aren't enough. So I wanted to flag that for you. And the next and the last point that I want to raise is something that I had mentioned when this project was originally proposed, and the treatment of the fencing was discussed, and I had made a suggestion that you create, if you're going to use this same sort of fencing, some boxes for viewing the beautiful vista from the bridge, and that would enable people who want to take photographs to be able to raise their cameras up and not get a piece of wire in front of their lenses. Could be reinforced metal that is just inserted in places within the mesh, because if you don't do that, as you can see in various places on the Manhattan Bridge, the public has taken it into their own hands to bring their own wire cutters and create their own openings, which are pretty ragged and certainly not the look that you'd want to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we can bring that back to our bridges team who is handling the fencing contract.
And I'm sure it's not gonna be very expensive. You can probably, take some, hardware, as long as it's waterproof, salt-proof, off, galvanized, whatever you use, stainless steel even, off the shelf of the hardware store. And, we've got some creative folks who could, make this work, beautifully. I'll give you an example at the, Union Square.
Larry, we could leave the details of the.
No, I was just gonna say, the Union Square subway station is a piece of art. They created these frames for the old, tile subway wall as you transfer between trains, and you can get a peek through. And that's what we're looking for, just places to peek through.
Yep, okay, moving on, I want to address some of the Q and As on the Zoom, we have the first one here from. Meeser, their question on, why maintain, the two-way for vehicles on 59th Street until the parking garage? This adds conflicts of cars, bikes headed westbound for that initial period and has turning cars across the bike lane for no reason. Cars can access the garage there just fine if it's only one-way traffic from eastbound Second.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We did have a lot of discussions about the two-way access for 59th Street, and a lot of it does have to do with the DOT facilities along the northern section, as well as a DSNY entrance to a facility as well along the northern curb. And then also in conversations with a parking garage, talking about a lot of their current customers do come in from First Avenue currently. And so if we're keeping it because of DOT maintenance access to their facilities, then we could accommodate the parking garage as well.
So why is DOT precluded from using it as a, why isn't it possible for them to have access with it being one way? Why is it necessary for it to be two-way?
I'll jump in and handle that. So one of the things that's the situation is that on Second Avenue southbound, north of here, southbound, that left turn onto 59th Street is currently banned. In addition, even if it wasn't banned, you have a ton of bridge traffic that really slows down any access to 59th Street. Similarly, if you're on, Park Avenue or wherever heading east towards this block, you are stuck in some very congested 59th Street bridge access traffic. And so what we are informed of is that all the people who use this block, they generally come, if they're on the east half of the block, they generally come from First Avenue. The travel patterns there are much more amenable to getting to where you want to go. So with that in mind, if we did try to convert the entire block to one way eastbound the whole way, there is going to be a lot of unhappy land uses on this block. So we were trying to be accommodating for all.
Just to be clear, it sounds like the parking garage is the objector, no?
And all the businesses.
That they, for delivery reasons or for customer access? Both?
Yes, yes.
What would the signage?
Asked
from first, what would the signage be on First Avenue? Because when I go across First Avenue, go up on the South Roadway, it's a habit for me. And there'll be plenty of people who will attempt to do that after the roadway is closed. So what do you intend to put on the sign to make it very, very clear? Do not enter except, and then what? In other words, you could put a do not enter sign except for people in the garage, maintenance vehicles. So I'm asking, what does DOT think the best signage to keep people from wandering through, thinking they can get on the bridge in a vehicle?
Right. We've been discussing a few different options. and we haven't finalized anything yet, but we're looking at something like local access only type signage at the entrance at First and 59th, and then also additional signage kind of in the middle section where it transitions to the authorized vehicles only. There'll be kind of like a do not enter sign except bikes, like that type of signage.
Well,
in the middle
I'm
section.
gonna ask you to think about, do not enter for traffic. Just simply because people will not notice anything but that. You know, if it's too wordy.
All right, moving on. Let me do a hand raise. Sorry. All right, let's go to Liam. Liam, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I put my question in the chat as well, but this is mostly good. I really like this. The one critique I have is that I'm assuming most people coming over from the direction of Second Avenue to the South Outer Roadway will be coming over on the paved part of the sidewalk, just because that's the part of the sidewalk that actually connects directly to other pedestrian infrastructure from Second onward. As such, I'm wondering, like, is there any estimate, like, is there any way to potentially make the mid-block crosswalk larger or wider? Because I appreciate the intent on the new bit of paved sidewalk on the north side of 59th Street, but I'm also predicting that it's still not going to be as heavily used as the paved bit of sidewalk already on the south side to get there. And that's just because, like, even with the painted bit of sidewalk, you would still have to cross over to the south side of 59th Street anyway if you wanted to go anywhere beyond Second. So that's my question. It's a good plan otherwise, but I do have a concern that you're potentially not estimating as large an amount of people coming from the south bit of 59th Street as the plan does.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we can definitely consider widening the mid-block crossing.
All right, let's go to Dana with Andrews. Dana, here before.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to say that I started biking during the pandemic, and I actively avoid the Queensboro Bridge as much as possible if I can, because it's like a completely harrowing experience, especially for somebody who's a new biker. I've got like e-bikes passing me. I'm slow, so there's regular bikes passing me. Occasionally, I'll actually pass a pedestrian, and it's like a completely harrowing experience. And as soon as I get over, all I'm thinking about is, oh gosh, I have to do this again on the way back. And going downtown to any of those other bridges where they have the the bike lane separated from the pedestrians is so amazing. It feels like so luxurious. And so I just want to say how important this is for somebody like me who doesn't bike a lot, but when I do bike, it doesn't feel like a great situation there at all. It's completely dangerous. So I just want to say that I'm happy to see that this is actually going to happen.
Thanks, Dana. And I'll also add, as a pedestrian, it's just as harrowing. And I'm more often a pedestrian than a cyclist in this roadway, but I've also been both. So yeah, I think it serves nobody really in the way that it's set up now, and the number of support. Thanks for the comment. All right, then we got Catherine. You now have the floor.
Hi, thank you so much. Just wanted to say, really appreciate this presentation from DOT. Really looking forward to this being implemented. I live on the Upper West Side and like to go to Queens from time to time, but I avoid biking there just because of this bridge, because it's just such a mess. So really looking forward to having this will make bikers safer, pedestrians safer, everyone will be better off. I think the plan overall is solid. I'm just curious if there's any plans down the line to have capital improvements to or the painted sidewalk that's proposed to make it like a permanent sidewalk. I think it's important to have this extra pedestrian space, but I think I worry that in other parts of the city, painted sidewalks can easily be parked on in areas with heavy traffic like here. So I'm just wondering if there's any plans down the road to solidify it.
Yes, that's definitely our intention, is to have this be built out in capital, hopefully in the near future.
All right, did you have a question?
Yeah, I shot it to you. Simply, do you include e-bikes in your definition of cycles?
In terms of the numbers or in terms of the pathway?
In terms of the pathway and who can participate on it.
Yes, the numbers that are included do include e-bikes.
But is your question, who is the bike lane
For
designated for?
Yes.
Who is and who isn't supposed to
Yeah,
be
we're
using?
gonna have mopeds on that.
Well, I mean, I can answer that, but I'll allow DOT to answer.
Sorry, well, the question was if mopeds can use the bike lane?
Yeah, who's the appropriate users on the bike lane?
Cyclists and e-bike, not mopeds.
So there'll be like class 1 and 2 e-bikes, I believe, and possibly 3. I guess so. But e-bikes, not mopeds. Okay.
All of the normally permitted vehicles, it's the wrong word, but all of the normally permitted vehicles that we permit on bike lanes would be permitted here as well.
Can you spell it out?
I don't
have that in front of me.
No need to have the legal definition defined here. But I do think it's worth noting that as we talk about this is that, like, I think one of the challenges of that roadway is that it is very crowded, but also you have faster moving bicycles because many of them are illegally using the path that are vehicles that are not street legal or shouldn't be using the pathway. I suppose this won't address any of that. It's worth the discussion about, if you have ideas about how we can better address that, I'm all ears.
We'll table that for this second. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably best. Okay. We need no more hands. Three vehicles. I'm just looking at the questions on the Q&A. Okay, so there's a question here from James that I want to address in the Q&A. James Morden, what are the measures to slow cars on 59th Street as they're sharing the space with bikes besides the narrow mid-block? And how is this proposal ensuring that bikes are reliably directed to the north outer lane? As a biker, I very much appreciate this going too quickly. So I think we already answered the second part, but on the first part in terms of vehicle slowing.
So the westbound traveling vehicle, we're projecting that volume is going to be very low because it's mostly just authorized vehicles in local access for the first piece of the block there. And then the eastbound traveling vehicles, we're looking at doing some traffic calming at 2nd Avenue to kind of narrow that roadway to slow the vehicles down. And then, as you might notice, kind of in the design, it like chicanes slightly throughout to kind of facilitate those kind of slower movements up to the mid-block crossing there.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to a question from Liam Martins about any considerations for sound isolation between the pedestrian and cyclist paths and the motor vehicle roadways. Has that been considered?
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part of the question.
So has there been any consideration for sound isolation between the roadway and the pedestrian and the cyclist paths?
That, I mean, I can check with, that's not like something I'm super familiar with. Dan, if you have thoughts.
No, I think it's gonna sound exactly like it sounds on the North Outer Roadway. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that one.
Okay, all right. Let's, one more hand, and then I think we're gonna move this forward on the agenda to the next topic. Andrew, you have the floor.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So thanks for the proposal. This is any issues, any improvements here are super needed. Like I think people have been complaining about the Queensboro bike lanes for a long time now, and having more space is going to be necessary. I had a question about the moped issue. My understanding, which I guess correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are a lot of mopeds right now that sort of illegally are using that pedestrian bike access bike lane right now. And my understanding is that mopeds are also not allowed to use the main bridge itself. So if that's the case, I'm kind of wondering if there's a need for a moped only lane in the future, or is my assumption incorrect and like mopeds are supposed to go on the bridge itself, like with the car traffic? So yeah, telling me how it works would be useful. Thanks.
I think that mopeds are supposed to have a license plate. They're supposed to be registered with the state. But I also don't know this like for sure. I'm not, again, I didn't come prepared to answer lots of questions about the classifications and definitions of mopeds. But generally speaking, I'm pretty sure they're supposed, if you have a license plate on your vehicle, you are supposed to be on the bridge, like the main vehicular lanes of the bridge. I think it's what you're seeing with all those mopeds is that they are choosing what they feel most comfortable doing.
Right.
And your suggestion isn't a bad one. It's the first time I've heard it. So we would have to take it back and look into it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one more question, and then sorry, then let's move on. Something that was noted on Second Avenue was that there's an additional parking space being created. Maybe it's a minor detail, but I'm just curious, like why and how that came to be, and why is that needed, and how that was possible.
Yes, we are considering extending that parking space there because in our proposed design, we're acknowledging that, you know, the section between Second Avenue and the mid-block is becoming no standing anytime. So while that does permit for like really quick pickup drop off at the curb itself, it doesn't allow for kind of the loading, unloading, and access to kind of the building there that's on the corner. And so we wanted to kind of alleviate some of those concerns by trying to extend that parking there.
Would that be better served as like a loading zone then, not as parking?
Yeah, that's definitely a detail that we haven't worked out completely there, but we can take that suggestion back to our team to evaluate.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on from questions. Sorry, I saw there was another hand and a couple questions that weren't answered. I just want to move this along in terms of expediency and other agenda topics.
We call for a vote.
So yeah, so we have a resolution that was circulated beforehand. I think you can propose the motion to. You would need to make a motion to propose the resolution.
A motion to formally propose the resolution for a vote. Second.
All right. Okay, so now we have the resolution, which Brendan, can you share?
Yes, I will do that right now. I did send it to committee members ahead of time, but just for committee members as well as members of the public watching from home. This is the draft resolution. I'll scroll down to resolve the clause.
Do you want to give like a quick overview summary without having to read the whole?
Just basically that we support the DOT plan to convert the south roadway to pedestrian only and to do it as quickly as possible and to restripe the north lane, as I said they would do, to make the lanes equal in each direction and to do it as quickly as possible.
All right, so let's open up for any questions or discussions on the resolution.
Is there any way to reference some of the suggestions we've had tonight?
Do you have specific things you would like to make a motion to amend?
Well,
I'll give you a minute to come back. I'll come back to you. Does anyone else have anything? I'm not dismissing you, but I'll come back. Does anybody else have anything that they want to raise? Sorry, I was not trying to. Okay, Larry, do you have?
yeah,
We could also come back.
okay, I just want to, if somebody can, Bradley?
Yeah.
If you can, just quickly put on the screen, a couple of words before we flesh, the ideas out.
Just when we're on the screen?
Yeah, you know, with respect to, the new resolve. And that, it be further resolved that, Manhattan Community Board 6, requests, consideration of the following, further improvements. And then anybody else can chime in if they want to add a particular, idea that was raised, earlier in the meeting.
Just anything you wanted specifically?
Yeah, okay, just setting up. Following additional.
Additional improvements.
Additional improvements.
Thank you.
Observation slots in the fence. In the fencing. Another one would be, appropriate signage at First Avenue and East 59th Street to warn vehicles that the roadway west of 59th Street is no longer an approach to the 59th Street Bridge. Third, additional signage that will help segregate cyclists from pedestrians so that they no longer mix as they cross the bridge. Anybody else?
Something along the lines of, I'm sorry.
Got it.
I'm gonna turn, consideration for some shelter station for deliveristas.
The only reason I would leave that out potentially would be that it's not our district.
Well, all of this,
Well, just
in terms of the fencing, that's. on
okay,
the
yeah,
bridge.
fair enough. I'm fine including, yeah, inclusion of a delivery worker rest area would be the President?
In the vicinity of the maintenance garage.
On 59th Street.
Yeah. Accessible from 59th Street.
Okay, yeah, can we add, then,
How would it be worded?
inclusion of a delivery worker rest area
Right,
on 59th Street?
accessible from 59th Street, in the vicinity of the maintenance garage.
But I think we could just say, I'd rather give them the latitude to
Yeah.
put it where they feel most appropriate.
Well, I mean, it would be a sheltered delivery work area. That's the key, that it's under an overhang, at least.
Well, yeah, well.
I would
I would
say
give them the
sheltered
latitude.
and give them latitude.
Yeah,
because
that's the-
maybe they'll be guided by the
Yeah.
language.
Okay. So the inclusion of a sheltered delivery worker rest area accessible to that street.
Sheltered, just in addition to the word sheltered, Brendan.
Before the word delivery, sheltered,
Wait,
right,
Right there.
before the word delivery. Insert sheltered.
Gabe, did you have an addition?
Yeah, real quick, just piggybacking off your thing, a creation of additional loading zone space on Second Avenue in lieu of parking.
Yeah, I like that.
Note that they have added some delivery space on First Avenue
so creation of say that again, please?
of additional.
Loading zone area on Second Avenue in lieu of new parking. Do we want the in lieu of? Just.
No, I like the end one.
So creation of an additional loading zone area
Yeah,
on,
Second
Second
Avenue.
Avenue. Should we put this? No, it's fine.
in lieu of additional parking.
Right, that's great.
But you maybe specifically say on Second Avenue and 59th Street. To be clear on exactly.
Mary, did you have anything?
Yeah.
It's so quiet.
Maybe just one more thing.
I thought I want to go to B.
Oh, sorry.
Just, I'd like to make sure we don't wait for too long. Please, go ahead, B.
So I think we're getting too detailed. I could see what we're putting up, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we're very delighted with the proposal. And I think these kinds of details can be worked out afterwards. So I'm for more simplicity. And I wouldn't look to do a major list of, we already have 5 additional items. And so we're losing the whole support for the proposals the more we do.
I agree. I don't think we should micromanage this. So we should be mindful about how much more we add here, if at all. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna add one more thing, but then I heard B and I was like, okay, I'll withdraw that.
Well, what were you thinking?
You know, on 59th and First, the cyclists have a split phase signal, so you just kind of have this short time to go forward. You still need a split phase signal there that really kind of shortens the cyclist time.
It is a problem, I
That they can
agree.
go across, and now that there's not gonna be much traffic on 59th and First turning left. I don't think you need a split phase signaling, but I respect.
We can chime in on that one and say that one's gonna be handled. You don't have to write it out.
Thank you. Well, I move these, this amendment.
I think we need a second for the amendment. All right, thank you.
Where.
I move the resolution as amended here, so we can vote on it.
Okay, and you're calling the question.
Yes, I'm calling the question,
Wonderful.
assuming it's we have a second.
Yes.
Yes, all right, then let's go to vote on this resolution as amended.
Okay. When I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, oppose, abstain, or not entitled. B. Disman,
In favor?
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor.
Miriam Rowe,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor?
Dave Terzo,
In favor.
Jerry Weinstein.
Very in favor.
With all 7 committee members present in favor, this resolution passes.
Thank you very much, affirmative transportation. All right, we'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the resolution on improvements to the Second Avenue street design, which was also shared ahead of the meeting. Does anyone have Eddie, if you want any sort of intro.
Well, this is, if everybody recalls from last time that we, voted unanimously in support of the DOT proposal to offset the Second Avenue bus lane and to widen the, Second Avenue bike lane. And there were so many good suggestions, here last time, and we, tried to incorporate them all. Things like, offset crossings, hardening pedestrian safety, using delivery, increasing the number of delivery zones, things like that. So we listened to all the suggestions that this board made last time, and I think we have a better, and I think it was a good decision to wait till now. I think we have a better resolution than we would have had if we rushed it through.
One thing I recall that we added, that wasn't discussed in the meeting was asking for the, merging, the bike vehicle merging zones to be replaced with offset crossings on Second Avenue. It wasn't specifically addressed. I suspect I was probably likely to come with this anyway, but those have been shown to be less subject to conflict and safer.
Jason, for the benefit of those people who don't understand what an offset crossing is, will you
Yes.
flesh that out?
Okay, so really, I think only in the section of Second Avenue north of 42nd Street do these still exist. But the merge zones are basically an area where you have turning traffic, left turning traffic, and the turning lane effectively merges with the bike lane, and bikes are supposed to merge with the vehicles. It creates this very confusing transition area where I think in theory, the bike's supposed to like wait behind the cars that are turning, but in practice, some bikes continue forward, some go around the cars. There's a lot of conflict that is created with that design. And the design that the Department of Transportation has been moving more towards is this offset crossing design, which basically requires the cars to make sort of a short turn left, and makes them like slow down and effectively stop and yield to the bikes that continue through. Personally, I find that to be a much more comfortable design when I'm biking. And I think that's widely shared.
Thank you, Jason. Call the question.
Second.
All right. Okay. When I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Okay, B. Disman,
In favor?
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Bromwich.
In favor.
Marion Ruff,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor?
Dave Terzo,
In favor.
and Jerry Weinstein.
In favor.
With all 7 committee members present voting in favor, this resolution passes.
All right. All right, moving on to number 3, which is discussion of potential weekend FDR lane closures during summer to mitigate the greenway gap caused by construction on the East River Park. That was a mouthful. I have a brief presentation prepared, which was also sent around, if this looks familiar.
Just a moment.
No problem.
Just want to make sure viewers at home can also the presentation.
So a brief introduction while Brendan's pulling it up. I appreciate this is a little bit of an ambitious proposal. But I'm interested in feedback of the committee on if it's too ambitious for us to pursue, general thoughts or ideas on it. And generally I like to live by the idea of if I'm not being told that my ideas are crazy, that I'm not pushing hard enough. So that's kind of what's going on here. If you go on to the next slide, please. All right, so basically setting the scene in terms of what the East River Greenway looks like today. It is a disjointed mess. You have sections that are open, sections that never connected fully to make it a full greenway. You have sections that are close to construction. You have sections that are under construction but are open. Much of the burden of the closure is on the southmost portion of the of the Greenway. The gap is squarely within our district by the UN. We never had a full Greenway connection over there. The Greenway just ends and cyclists are expected to use the roadway and pedestrians. And so when you look at the bottom section, just a note call out, you have in the south part of the roadway, the Greenway rather, there's an area that's so far under construction, and then you have like sort of a large block that's completely closed off. Thanks. Yeah. We could go next slide, please. So yeah, so the source of the closure and a lot of the lower roadway disruption is the east side coastal resiliency project, which I will not attempt to abbreviate. Basically, this is work that's going to be continuing into the next 3 years, in different phases. This is where it's currently closed off, but in the coming months, it's expected to migrate to more closures on the north side and with this section reopening. Next slide, please. And also, yeah, we have this massive gap I mentioned before, the UN within our district that you have to detour to First Avenue to be able to continue up to the beautiful new section, which is on my next slide. So we're making progress here. There are 2 beautiful sections that have reopened recently. I think it's important to follow out the good that's been happening on the Greenway. On the left, we have Stuyvesant Cove, which is lovely, although I will note that it has sort of it's not fully connected in that the north part of Stuyvesant Cove is now a dead end, and if you're trying to continue as like a throughway, you have to make sure to leave Stuyvesant Cove or like never enter Stuyvesant Cove. But anyway, it's really quite nice. And on the right, you have the new section on 54th Street, I believe it starts.
That's where the
54th.
bridge is.
Yeah, and set in place. Yes, really terrific. If you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should. So we're making progress, but we still got a ways to go. Next slide, please. And so we have this mismatch with the like construction and gaps. There's a ton of confusion. I pulled some stuff from Reddit that I've come across, and just to kind of show an example that like people are very confused that it's really not clear how you can utilize this path. And I think effectively it has deterred a lot of people from using it at all. Also, the detour signage is fairly poor, if at all. And yeah, I mean, I think it's led to mass confusion about how to traverse the east side via the Greenway.
It's definitely deterred me from using it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've actually gotten pretty expert at navigating it, but I need some shit too. Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brendan, next slide, please. And so, yeah, so as I highlighted, it's a huge mess for pedestrians and cyclists, but traffic has been not impacted or inconvenienced at all by the East Coast Resiliency Project. There have been no lane closures. This is street view, but it is the current condition. We continue to have 3 uninterrupted lanes of traffic in both directions 7 days a week. Despite the massive inconvenience that all other road users have faced as a result of this project, the traffic is unimpeded. Next slide, please. And yeah, just to reiterate that this is going to be going on for a while. We are a bit into it, but we're expecting this to continue into 2026. Next slide, please. All right, so I am proposing that we temporarily designate the northbound FDR lanes for exclusive pedestrian and cyclist use on summer weekends until the project, the East Coast.
East Side Coastal Resilience.
Thank you, Brendan. Is completed. And how I would go about proposing doing that. The next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Brendan, sorry, could you move around the bottom stuff? Thank you. Okay, so my proposal, which has evolved a little bit as I've talked to a couple of different people about this, would be to allow full or two vehicles as they exist today, continuing southbound, taking the northbound section of the roadway, making that entirely exclusive to pedestrians and bikes, and allowing traffic to continue counterflow on the opposite side of the barricade with cones delineating the northbound, southbound direction traffic. So you would still have traffic that would continue. We would still be able to support traffic on the northbound direction and southbound direction, but obviously at a lower pace. Notably, as we're talking about weekend, this wouldn't be a 7-day-a-week solution. This would be weekends where we have lower traffic volume, and also emphasizing that this would be a temporary measure as a part of the closures that we have on due to the park construction. Next slide. And so this would cause some other changes with traffic as well. So if we're moving all the northbound traffic into the southbound section of the roadway, we would have to, it would basically create this through zone only section in the closure area, where we would have 3 on-ramps that would be closed and would be accessible because you wouldn't be able to get the northbound traffic into that other lane. And you would close off the exit. So you create this kind of like expressway through much of Midtown that I appreciate would require adjustments for traffic. Next slide, please. And also, yeah, there would be some minor, I think, construction that would be necessary to break through the barriers to allow for that transition zone to be created at the north and south ends. Next slide. And also just to call out that there is precedence to do this. We already have full or partial closures of the FDR on certain weekends and holidays. And to my knowledge, they don't create any major traffic disruptions. 3 key events, there may be others, but you have the New York City Half Marathon in March that just happened recently. The Independence Day fireworks, on a big holiday, we shut down the FDR. And then we have the 5-hour bike tour in May. And yeah, I would love to hear everybody's feedback. I don't think we're going to vote on this tonight or anything in that matter. I would love to just sort of hear what people think. If this is something that there's interest in continuing to discuss and move forward. Feedback, changes, suggestions on the plan. I'll open it up. Larry?
Just an additional use of the FDR drive for non-vehicular purposes. Number of years ago, there was an Ekiden, which is a mass relay race that very popular in Japan, and high schools, universities participate, and the FDR drive was closed for that.
Yeah, I think that still goes on actually, but I don't think they closed the FDR for it. Interesting.
I love the idea and I think it's fantastic. I don't know if you're able to go back to where you see the FDR going in both directions is the one thing I think it's hard. Are you able to go back to that slide, Brandon, where the FDR, the people are going in both directions on the FDR?
Yeah.
There, one there. That seems to me hard to achieve, and I don't think those other events do that.
They do not.
I think they just kind of leave that as the southbound lane.
Yes, correct.
Which I think is a lot easier to do rather than, and maybe it's dangerous to try to move the highway traffic over so this other car can come is the only thing that I would slightly tweak about this, but I think there's precedence for it because for Summer Streets, we don't have anything in CB6 and it's only 3 days and it's such a short period. Why couldn't we have an extra 3 days of Summer Streets? And the problem of Summer Streets is that you need all these people patrolling all these intersections, so it's so expensive.
You don't have that.
Whereas this, you don't need it, and I think it really is fantastic.
A couple things. I originally, when I was envisioning this, I was trying to come up with a solution that didn't entirely shut off all northbound traffic, and my original thinking was limiting down the northbound lane to 1 lane, allowing traffic to continue at a reduced speed on the northbound side, and setting up barriers of cones and some other way to separate the pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles to continue to travel northbound. Some feedback that I got that would be potentially dangerous, and this was a safe solution to the bikes and pedestrians. There is precedence for that as well. I appreciate perhaps slightly different context, but we do contra flow on the Queens Midtown Tunnel, where I think there's cones that delineate the both directions. But I think they just use cones during construction.
There's a truck that just moves these massive delineators all the way. It's like a real barrier.
No, but like in the tunnel
Yeah,
itself.
but
Oh, in
they're
the
much,
tunnel itself.
they're much narrower than traditional
So you're saying,
cylindrical cones.
oh, they're, yes, I suppose. But just to say that we do contraflow and like adjust the direction. I agree with you, there would be safety concerns, and I think you'd also be looking at like attempting to slow down speed and slow down.
Well,
traffic.
that's the key. You have to slow down the speed or else you're gonna have fatal head-on collisions.
Yes. And you'd have to do that in both directions. And so maybe the solution is more like take out the center lane. That way you narrow it down on both sides and it slows down traffic both ways. It's sort of a starting point, but I'm open to the idea of taking out the northbound traffic. I think it'd be a harder sell to cut off traffic altogether. That was sort of why I was trying to envision like a way to allow traffic to continue, but not cut it off. But I mean, in a perfect world, we would close the whole thing as far as I'm concerned. Yes. B, let's jump over to you.
Thank you. So I am a little concerned about the counterflow, as was already discussed. I'm also concerned about any additional construction that you were talking about. And in thinking about this proposal, and I know this is temporary and it's just for the few weekends, but don't you think that in doing something like this, we really do need to look at the traffic and the flow of traffic and work with DOT or to really talk through it? And I also don't know if it's a proposal that's possible for this summer, given some of the issues you would want to clarify. So I think it has a really good nucleus of an idea for the future, but I think we're way past this to implement something like this summer, and I do have traffic questions.
Yeah, no, I acknowledge that it would be aggressive to attempt to have something in place this summer. But notably, the resiliency project is expected to continue through 2026. So that would still leave next summer or the following summer for this to be something that could be implemented. It'd be great if we could do it this summer, but I appreciate that that's probably unrealistic. And I acknowledge and appreciate the concerns on the contraflow. That would be good there.
The end date, 2026, doesn't take into account a couple of projects that are going to take a lot longer. One is the building out around the United Nations of the extension south from 54th Street of the East River Greenway. And then the second project is the Pinch Point Bridge, which I'm presuming will cut the greenway off during that construction. And third, I guess this sort of overlaps the area south of the bridge, Pinch Point Bridge. The park is fairly narrow and they haven't even begun raising that up. And so while you mentioned that you ran through there today, that may be cut off again.
Yep. Yeah, I would expect it will be. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I was also thinking of summer streets, and this is such a cool way to extend it. And I didn't even realize that Park Avenue isn't CB6 until you said it. And I'm like, oh yeah, we actually we don't participate in it, geographically at least. So I really like that. And just thinking about the traffic part of it, congestion pricing will start around the same time too. And it just makes me curious as to like how that will change FDR Drive and people coming into the city. And do we even need those exits after a while?
Yeah. I think those are valid very valid points. Something important context to note on Summer Streets. And this is a Summer Streets alternative. We have a resolution asking for the expansion of Summer Streets, which includes asks to make the FDR a part of Summer Streets. Nothing has happened on that. I think it's like several years old. There has been no expansion of some Summer Streets in our district, at least. Although notably, it's lovely now north of, well north of the park. I don't know where it used to end. But yeah, no action has been taken on our ask to extend Summer Streets onto the FDR. So this is sort of like taking a different angle at it. I still would like to see it as a Summer Streets thing as well. There's sort of taking another stab at a reason, more of a pressing reason that we need this here, as opposed to just like strictly for like recreational use.
Yeah.
Jason, you're the author, but I'll make a suggestion that you can try to tie in a reference to the work that the board has done, asking for Summer Streets to be extended onto the FDR Drive and use that as a launching point.
Yep.
It's like a nice pilot.
Yeah, and that's also sort of a little bit of my coded intentions with this is like, let's see how this goes. And if this is successful, this would be a temporary measure. Maybe we don't need 4 lanes of traffic altogether or 3 lanes of traffic altogether in both directions. Or I think this is like, it creates a starting point of like, how can this community work without having a full FDR drive? Got some questions from the public I will acknowledge. Let's start with Dylan. Go ahead, Dylan, you have the floor.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So I really like this idea, but personally, if I were cycling this seems because it's kind of a half measure and compromise, as you've acknowledged, that a lot of the circumstances wouldn't quite work for when I would want to cycle. The fact that it's only going to be on some Saturdays means that it doesn't feel very useful as a functional, I need to get from point A to point B. Yes, when there are Saturdays where I'm going down, that's going to be great. But that the fact that it's only on certain Saturdays really lends itself to recreation. And the fact that it shares so much space with still 3 lanes or potentially 3 lanes of cars makes it feel less enjoyable from a recreational side. So, I mean, I know the conversation we just had. I'd really love to see this just kind of totally shut down for Summer Streets, or for this to be a permanent, or maybe not permanent, but like for this to exist for 2 years, not just on Saturdays, but always being an option, because that point A to point B is so menaced by construction. So I'd kind of love to see it go more in either direction. Either have it be a limited time frame and take over all of the FDR, or have it be a longer time frame, but keep this separate section. But that's just kind of a little bit of my experience, which comes from the fact that I think like someone else spoke earlier on a different topic. I am a little bit of a weaker cyclist, and so the idea of kind of sometimes figuring out when I can get on here and dealing with the cars is a little bit intimidating. But I do really love the idea.
Thanks. Just to point out I'm proposing anyway, Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be limited to Saturdays. I'd love to see this 7 days a week personally, but I appreciate that that's probably an aggressive ask.
Yep, that's an aggressive ask, but let the record reflect that there was one additional person pushing for such thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hold on. Jay, go ahead.
Just a logistics thing. Pardon me if this was addressed and I had an aphasia. Would we be needing to coordinate this with the community board too?
Yes, and importantly, we spoke with community board too. A lot of three.
Okay.
3 is
okay. I was just checking.
Yes. So to that point, much of the closure would mostly be within our district, but the start of it would fall largely. They would impact both. 3 and us. We had a discussion with the chair of Community Board 3, who was supportive, tentatively supportive of this. So we would need their full support, I imagine, to be able to actually implement this. They encouraged us to try to get some feedback from Department of Transportation and to see what we think. Also, important to note, the FDR is under state jurisdiction, so we would be looking at state DOT to get the buy-in and ultimately implement this. I imagine we'd have to coordinate with city DOT as well on traffic impacts, but the roadway is controlled by state DOT, is important to note.
Have you considered demonstration project, magic words?
Just to call this a demonstration project? I have not, but sure. I like the idea. Just as like a temporary, like a pilot. As
Exactly.
A way, yeah.
Whatever words of art, but the idea is that, this is intended to show what could be done. And that's really what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I'd like to.
And if it proves itself, it could be made permanent. That's the flexibility that could be, or extended beyond the initial period that you described for the reasons that I mentioned that there were other projects.
I cautiously think that if we don't pitch it as like a potential forever project, we might have more success getting this done if it's pitched as we only want to look at this for these next 2 years while this construction work is going on. So then if it proves successful,
Okay, so you're not interested in using the word demonstration of how this concept.
I'm interested in the feedback if others think that it would make more sense.
I'll
to
put
pitch
that out
way.
and see if anybody else responds.
Yeah, my thinking is that if we say, hey, we want to, for the long run, shut the FDR down in the northbound direction, I think that's gonna raise a lot of eyebrows. I think this is going to too. But it softens the blow a little bit by saying summer weekends as opposed to potential full-time future shutdown. I would also love to see this as all weekends as well, but I think there's a starting point. And I would say that's summer weekends for the construction project, and then I would pitch, my take is that I would pitch it as a pilot later if we're happy with the results. Any other thoughts on that? CB. Big ahead.
Yeah, so I have a couple of comments. One, since is something that's involved with the state, I think a lot of background stuff has to be done. We have to get to our state officials and see what their ideas are. Our local council people. I think there's a lot of preliminary work. And by the way, I agree with Larry on demonstration. I've used that term for many a thing, Larry. And a number of demonstrations can always become extended and permanent. So I'm comfortable with that term. But I think this is really a political issue that we have to work through. And I think you said it's an idea worth pursuing, but we have to also deal with the politics of it. And I think it's going to be very difficult on the state level.
Yep. Agreed. And I think that would probably be the next steps with this would be to start to engage elected officials and get their take. I think this would only be successful if we had their support and them pushing state DOT to help make this happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really the next step, in the concept of the idea. You don't need as much of the details, but the concept and the closing of the lane and the counter traffic, those are things that you really would have to talk about.
Yeah.
So you need to clarify up front that this is a state roadway and this is basically who you're pitching this to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I think our city council members though have a voice in this as well, and should be.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is that you need to be clear up front, whose jurisdiction this road is.
Yes, yeah, but it's definitively a state jurisdiction. Let's go to Liam. So your hand raised there. Sorry, I didn't mean to catch you up here.
Okay, now Liam should be able to speak.
All right, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so a few comments on this. First one, and I'll say this at the front because you're unintentionally alluding to this, and I don't think you know it, that the idea of starting this as a pilot program and then sort of seeing where it goes from there, that's basically how Paris handled their the closing off of the Seine of the expressway alongside the River Seine, and now it's like a really celebrated park project, and that basically started under very similar auspices to what you're proposing, where they started off as a pilot project, see how it goes. If it didn't go well, they could reverse it. They ended up not doing that. So there is kind of a precedence already set. Now, granted, it's a very different context in the sense of this happening in Paris. Nonetheless, though, it is a case of a project like this being done as a sort of pilot. Let's see how this works concept, and it being made permanent. The second one is that I know that you're framing keeping half the FDR open to vehicular traffic as a compromise thing. I honestly suspect that if you propose this as a full FDR closure, operationally, it would be significantly easier for DOT to handle. Just because like with keeping half the highway open, you're now talking about trying to do mitigation measures to make sure northbound traffic can get off the highway safely and in a way that doesn't interact with southbound traffic. You close the entire thing, you can basically close off all the entrances and exits fairly easily. And I imagine if you were to pitch that version of the project to DOT and the state as opposed to the half open version, they'd probably, just from an operational perspective, they go for the full closure version, just because it would just be significantly less work on their parts to plan for. So that's my feedback on this. I really, really love the fact that this is being discussed at a community board meeting at all, something like this. And I want to see something like this succeed. I do think, though, that to make it succeed, your frame, I know you're trying to do a compromise here with keeping half the highway open. I think going for the full thing would be the best way to go, honestly.
That makes sense. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that feedback.
Sure.
All right, there's a couple of comments on the Q&A. Scott writes that he bikes a detour every week. It's not raining and the FDR as a detour is much less desirable. I'm sure follow. Bike the detour route every weekend. It's not raining. And using the FDR as a detour is much less desirable. Also, it would add construction time to an already undermanned project in Lower East Side. The exits for cars have to be retained northbound, or else those alternative detour routes for biking will get very clogged and not the relative empty streets that they are on now. FUC is a bike lane northbound, go in the Greenway, it's workable. Okay, yeah, thanks for that feedback. And then we have Meiser asking if there was any thought on why I was focused on shutting down the northbound versus the southbound. So I did originally, when I was putting this together, had some slides for the two options of we could close either the northbound or the southbound side. There's some pros and cons. The pro of using the southbound side would have been a better connection onto the new section of the Greenway and 54th Street in Southern Place, because it would more easily, there's an exit ramp on the south side or an entrance ramp on the south side. The downside is, I don't remember the numbers, but there's slightly more exits and entrances that would be interrupted if you use the south side instead of the north side. Additionally, I had a theory that I don't know if is correct, that northbound traffic, never mind. I was going to suggest that I think, well, I have a theory that there's less northbound traffic than there is southbound traffic, but I don't have data to support that.
Jason, do you have hours in mind?
I didn't get into that. I don't know.
Because that relates to which direction traffic is heavy.
Well, weekends, well, I don't know. On weekends, for the most part, it's probably less time. There's no rush hour per se as much. But yes, I suppose if you were looking at like midday, it would be.
The question is whether people tend to be coming into city, on balance, or leaving the city.
So like,
just in lighter numbers.
yeah. And perhaps it could even be something around the lines of like southbound closure on Saturdays and northbound closure on Sundays, although that might be probably operationally not a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Is there a way we could funnel all traffic to the FDR in a way that would allow us to close First Avenue, for example, for pedestrians and cyclists? The avenues are also much needed shade in the summer. All traffic, I'm assuming that means shutting traffic, pedestrian and cyclist traffic to First Avenue. That's an interesting proposal. I think the problems with that are the police staffing that we have with summer streets, and that you would need, I don't know if you would necessarily need, but it seems to be established that we need a large police presence to enforce the summer streets when it's in the city blocks. Also, you do still have the interruption of the cross streets. I don't think we could, well, there's fewer cross streets, I suppose, on First Avenue, but there's still a number of cross streets, especially on the southern portion. So I would say this is possibly a better solution, just in that it's continuous and doesn't necessarily require the full police project to have it to be effectively implemented. Any other final comments, thoughts on this? Otherwise, I think takeaways are make some changes with the feedback, and then try to bring this into discussion with some elected officials.
Just one point.
Yeah, maybe going back to the community work.
Just one point, is bringing up First Avenue, but you have Bellevue, you have NYU.
Emergency rooms.
That is relevant now, and I think it would be very tough to close off traffic to the hospitals. But I feel like we do need some more summer streets in our neighborhood, and something we should be discussing, and maybe Third Avenue could be open to a summer street. I mean, it only goes 3 days. Why not go an extra 3 days in our neighborhood too?
So we have that existing resolution. I don't remember, other than the FDR, what we asked for. I think there was a variety of streets that we asked for to be closed off as part of that. I don't think Third Avenue was on there.
It wouldn't address this gap.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Curry Hill.
Yeah.
You're going after different audiences too.
Yeah, I have to agree that, like, when you're looking at like summer streets, I see that as sort of like casual recreational, creates like this like street fair effectively.
Right.
And with the FDR is like people who are trying to more have this continuous access path, as opposed to like kind of having a street fair. It's more of a, it's recreational transportation, if that makes sense, where like you're trying to go kind of a further distance and more of a continuous further distance. Yeah, I think they're kind of separate.
And one thing that you'll have to be able to push back against is the criticism that this is only serving the extreme east side of Manhattan, in comparison with Summer Streets, which is deliberately located on the spine.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with positioning it as a summer streets thing, is like, how do you get people to the East River who aren't like trying to use it anyway?
I think you're right in your focus and how you conceived of it. And this may, as I suggested before, have is an idea that derived from our suggestions of expanding summer streets, but it's a wholly expanded concept.
Yep. Okay, and I'm just gonna acknowledge James's comment, and then I'd like to move us on, because we got one more thing. James questioned how other constituents outside of 6 and 3 would be acknowledged in that the traffic would be, they would be impacted by the traffic in the closure of the FDR would create impacts to other communities beyond ours, if we close off that access route. And I acknowledge and something we need to think about. Okay, let's move on, unless there's any objection. Okay, last item on the, or not last item on the agenda, almost last item on the agenda is, parking regulations in front of Trader Joe's on Third Avenue between East 31st Street and East 32nd Street. I hope this will be fairly quick. I drafted a resolution. Actually, if you could show the picture first, and then we can show the resolution.
There are a couple of pictures. There's the signage.
So just quickly, review what's going on here. So there's a Trader Joe's on, Third Avenue between 31st Street and 32nd Street. They get deliveries, 7 days a week up until as late as 10 PM, as I understand. On Monday through Saturday, they have, or the curbside is a commercial vehicle loading, no parking area, until 7 PM. But that leaves Sundays, for regular parking. And on Sundays, it creates this problem where they're still getting deliveries, and in order because there are cars parked there, the delivery vehicles parked in the travel lane, creating traffic, creating hazards to the people who are trying to unload the trucks, creates hazards to the vehicles that are parked there, where cargo is being unloaded next to, and yeah, so there was a ask from Trader Joe's management, if we would be able to ask DOT to create ask DOT to extend the parking restrictions in front of their store to allow for the deliveries that have designated parking area or loading area on Sundays, as well as extending the time from existing at 7 PM to extending to 10 PM. But if you go back to the resume. So I mean, basically the reso spells out that Trader Joe's provides valuable service to the community. They've asked for us to make this accommodation for us. They receive deliveries on Sundays, but the parking regulations don't accommodate that. And we would like DOT to consider adjusting parking regulations to support the deliveries. We'll open up to questions. Larry?
It was a terrific resolution. Trader Joe's is very clear in what their needs are. And based upon my own observation of their operations and their status in town or your Third Avenue, this is a very realistic ask. I only have a question for Trader Joe's, and that is, are they asking for enough in terms of how late they're requesting the use of the curb? 10 o'clock may not be enough time if they haven't finished offloading, and I don't want them to get a ticket for or whatever.
I believe the restriction would only, it opens after 10 PM, the parking would open up to all other uses. So it doesn't become no parking after 10 PM. It's no parking.
Okay, you've cleared it up from.
Yeah, so they would, if they're already, as long as they're not.
The truck is
all
already
driving,
there, right,
that wouldn't.
No, that's fine. I'm all on board, and I'll let other people comment.
Yeah. I think the resolution says they get deliveries as late as 9, and so then they have the 1 hour buffer.
Well, it's,
I'm pretty
I'm
sure I
satisfied.
saw.
I think it says
Totally
10.
satisfied.
It's till 10, but that they get deliveries till 9. I mean, I might be making that up, but
Yeah,
when I was
that's
reading
pretty
it earlier, I remember seeing 9 PM and then later 10 PM.
Does the expert want to weigh in?
Oh.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm a manager at this facility, so
Oh,
Okay, and then you're the man I want to hear from.
yes, tell us.
yeah, I mean, there's often trucks in front of the store until 10 PM. It's unloading a truck is a process that takes up to 60 minutes.
But they're not arriving generally at 10 PM.
So how, wearing the Trader Joe hat, does this do it for you?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Good.
And maybe I should just move the question then.
Well, let's hear B,
Okay.
and then, yeah, B, go ahead.
I was gonna do what Larry just did, it was move the question.
Yep, great.
You want to second it?
Second.
Second it.
Okay, let's get a vote.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, oppose, abstain, or not entitled. Pete Isman,
In favor.
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Fromoway.
In favor.
Marion Rowe,
In favor.
Larry Shire,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
Not entitled.
Oh, that's right.
and Jerry Weinstein.
So entitled, in favor.
Yeah.
Okay, with 6 in favor, nobody opposed, no abstentions, and 1 not entitled, this resolution passes.
All right.
Excellent.
All right, if we still have Colleen, I'll give you the
She's not
floor.
here.
She's not here yet, fair enough. Okay, chair's report, I have a very quick chair's report, just 2 things I want to acknowledge as, positive things that have, affected transportation in the community. One is the bus lane on, Second Avenue, near the 13th precinct. There was a active effort to ask, from within the police department to ask officers to not park their vehicles in the bus lane, and I'm pleased to report that it's been rather effective and the bus lane has been rather clear for the last several weeks. So that's very nice, and I want to thank them for their hearing our concerns and addressing them. The other thing was the sidewalk around the Soloviev site has been repaved, which is something we talked about in this meeting recently. So perhaps they're listening, and if so, thank you for repaving the sidewalk. That's all I got on my chair's report. I will now open it up to all new business. I believe Larry has something.
Well, actually, this came through Brendan in the board's newsletter, and then Letty, who came up with an article that announced that the New York City Ferry has discontinued the bus that serves the East 35th Street ferry landing in the rush hours. This was a holdover, probably forced on them, when they successfully bid for the contract to run the ferry, because in the past, this had been run by New York Waterway. And one of the features of New York Waterway is the provision of free ferry bus service, and they've got a whole fleet of buses. And apparently they're not happy about losing the contract bid, and didn't offer their buses to Hornblower, which is the operator, and they had to make their own arrangements. They had an arrangement here at 34th Street. They have 2 bus routes in Rockaway, and they have another electric bus that sometimes works that takes passengers on the route up at Ferry Point Park, from the landing up to a parking lot through a park adjacent to the Whitestone Bridge. This ferry route is claimed in the news article, the justification for closing it, to have lost half of its patronage when people returned to work after COVID. That's not my own personal experience. I've used this ferry to come up to these meetings and to go to doctor's appointments. And the Soundview ferry has been packed, and the bus going from there has also been packed. So that's their rationale. That's where it is. I'm very disappointed to see it disappear, and that's the new business.
Just I think a correction. I'm pretty sure the bus is operated by EDC and not by Hornblower. I don't know if that really matters, but just a logistical note.
Well, I'm not sure, because this EDC has a contract with Hornblower, and I've seen some specs when they signed a new contract, And, we'll have to verify whether your version of this or my version is correct. We also should verify whether, in fact, they weren't committing to continue to run this. And if they have something in their agreement that allows them to discontinue any of the routes, so I think we're entitled to an explanation of that.
I have some thoughts and comments. So I think one of the problems plaguing the ferry system is the high operating costs. And I don't know the numbers offhand, but the subsidy per ride is several times that of other public transit in the city. I suspect that plays into the decision with the bus and reducing that cost.
How does it compare to the Staten Island?
It's a great question. I don't know. Imagine the ridership is quite a bit lower. But that's a great question. I don't know.
Well, capacity is a lot lower too.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because each one of the Staten Island ferry boats holds up to 5,000 people. And these hold at most 450. 1/10 the size.
But they also don't have it's not that they're turning people away. There's not the demand for the usage.
Depends on the route.
Yes.
And it depends on when you're talking about, and they do turn people away quite frequently, and that's very frustrating because the service isn't frequent enough I'll wait a half an hour because you have to wait a whole hour.
Yes, and that's why I don't take the ferry very often personally, is because I find the schedule to be there's very long gaps in between. Anyway, I don't know.
Anyway, that's a quite a valid point.
Yeah.
It's kind of a compromise. It's a benefit for people who are within walking distance of it, and a tremendous benefit for people who live near the shoreline, especially new developments that have come about largely because the ferry was available.
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, personally, I'm okay with the bus going away and trying to bring down some of the operating costs of the ferry.
There was an express
that's
bus.
my own opinion.
There was an express bus that went from Grand Central, what was it? The X-25.
Yes.
That went down to the Wall Street area that was discontinued. And then Stuyvesant Town, through a private operator, tried to revive it. And it just wasn't financially feasible to run a bus. So, your argument about the ferry, and yet, the time savings compared to going over to, a mile west to the subway at Union Square and then downtown, is enormous. Instead of 45 minutes, it's 10 minutes.
I would add just one thing. It seems like it's very circular. AM New York reports that it's EDC that shut it down. However, it oversees New York City Ferry, who made the announcement shutting it down based on insufficient ridership.
Yeah, but I don't know who NYC Ferry is. Is NYC Ferry like the division of EDC?
It's
or is that-
described as quasi-public.
No, NYC Ferry by Hornblower is a private outfit that's under franchise through the EDC. So they exist because EDC needed an operator on a turnkey basis.
Yeah. Okay. B, yeah. Thanks.
So I think I think we have some factual issues to look at before we further give our theories about it and seeing the whole discussion. So I think maybe we could ask the office to try to get some more details if we're going to really have a discussion. But I look at this as a private business that is just operating and trying to keep their costs down. And I don't know if it's really an issue for us in transportation.
Well, the key is whether the city stipulated in the
Well, that's why I
contract.
think we do need to do the research.
Provide certain services
Yeah.
and Brendan, can you ask to obtain the provisions of the contract, maybe the contract itself? Because
Yeah,
it
I
should be
can
a public
try.
record.
I can try.
Or maybe we
Possible I
can-
might need to,
Maybe we can
boil
do
it
it.
for it.
Yeah, that may
but-
be what we have to do.
But if that's what the committee wants and that's what I need to do, that's what I'll do.
Because otherwise, B is absolutely correct. We're just speculating.
I mean, we can take it offline. About looking into the next steps. Okay, anything else there? Or any other old or new business?
In the interest of always following up, has the office had any updates? It may be too soon with regards to Mina Au's presentation about
Oh,
2030 FDR.
thank you. I intended to bring that up. I would have liked to ask DOT on an update on that. I have a brief update that I can offer, but I would have been nice to have DOT. I intended to bring this up. There was an ask from from the board, from Sandy, to do a walkthrough with Brendan, yes, ECSR?
ESCR,
ESCR,
East Side Coastal Resiliency.
East Side Coastal
In
Resiliency.
your defense, I mean, I liaise with the land use committee, so I better know that acronym.
Okay, so yes, there was an ask to do a walkthrough of the site with them. I needs a follow-up. I don't think any action has been taken. Brendan, I don't know if you have any other update or news.
I haven't heard anything from DOT either. So, yeah, and there it's further follow-up.
And bicycling up there tonight, there's no change.
Yeah, no, there's no changes. Yeah, no, definitely not. But yeah, we need to follow up and try to, they were receptive to the walkthrough. It just hasn't been scheduled, so we need to make sure that happens amongst some other action. Okay, any other business, old or new? All right, seeing no old or new, old or new business, does anyone have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, all right. Seeing no objections, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:09 PM. Thanks for sticking around for the late meeting.
Bye-bye.